Never believe a single version of the truth. Especially when someone benefits by hiding it. Family is supposed to protect you, but sometimes they protect secrets instead. And the people you're told are gone may just be waiting to be found. Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks. My name is Sarah Miller, and I trusted my son with everything. But if you'd walked in 5 minutes ago, you wouldn't think I ever did. Because 5 minutes ago, I was screaming like a woman who'd been betrayed in the deepest way imaginable. What do you mean she's dead, Jason? I just saw her. I slammed my phone onto the kitchen table. The image flickered, a screen capture from a friend's Facebook post. An old woman, sitting quietly in the courtyard of a senior care home, wrapped in a red cardigan. Faded, yes. Fragile. But still unmistakably her. My mother. Elaine Thompson. The woman Jason told me had died 6 years ago. He flinched, stepping back like I'd hit him. Mom, that's not her, he said, hands up. It's just someone who looks like her. You're tired. You're confused. You've been confused? My voice cracked as it rose. Do you think I don't recognize my own mother? You said she was dead. We cremated her, Jason. I said let it go, he snapped. Why are you even looking at random old people online? You've been spiraling ever since Dad died. I shot to my feet, knocking over my chair. Don't you dare bring your father into this. He believed you, too. He grieved with me. You let him die thinking she was gone. What kind of son lies about something like that? He looked down, but not out of shame, no. Out of strategy. Calculating. Choosing his next move. You weren't stable back then, he muttered. There were reasons. You just weren't in the right state to take care of her. I froze. What did you just say? He didn't answer. You lied to me, I whispered. You didn't bury her. You put her somewhere. You locked her away and you told me she was gone. He turned his back to me, grabbing his coat from the hook by the door. You don't want to dig this up, Mom, he said quietly. Let the past stay buried. I am digging it up, I hissed. And this time you're not the one holding the shovel. This story doesn't start with a sad goodbye. It starts with a violent betrayal. I spent 6 years visiting a grave that held nothing. I mourned a woman who was still breathing. I cried on Mother's Day. I lit candles for her birthday. I thanked my son for handling the funeral when I was too sick to attend. And all along, she was alive. 3 hours away. Hidden. Forgotten. Like trash someone couldn't be bothered to throw out, just shoved in a drawer. And the man who told me she was dead was my son. My Jason. The same boy I raised on my own after his father died. The same boy I worked double shifts for, just to buy his graduation suit. The same boy who looked me in the eye and said, she passed peacefully, Mom. You don't need to see her. Now I understand why. He didn't want me to see her. Because if I had, I would have known what he did. It all started with a photo. A random post from a former coworker. Volunteering today at Cedar Grove Senior Center. Beautiful souls and beautiful weather blossom yellow heart. And there she was. Bottom left corner. Thin, pale, sunken cheeks, but still my mother. Still Elaine. I stared at that post for 30 minutes. Zooming in. Zooming out. Denial is funny. Your brain wants it to be a coincidence. But your heart knows better. And my heart was screaming. That night, I barely slept. I didn't even wait for Jason to get home from work. I barged into his apartment the next morning like a hurricane. That's where the fight happened. But the fight was only the beginning. Because the next day, I drove to Cedar Grove myself. No plan. No permission. No clue what I'd find. Just a sick feeling in my stomach. And one question pounding in my head. Why would my own son fake my mother's death? I'm not here to make you feel sorry for me. I'm here to warn you. Because the biggest betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from the people who say they're protecting you. Jason wasn't protecting me. He was protecting a secret. And once I found my mother. Once I held her frail hand and watched the recognition flicker in her eyes. I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just neglect. It was a cover-up. And what he did to her. What he did to both of us. Would make you sick. Let's start at the beginning of the lie. Not the day she died. The day he took her from me. And slowly, I'll show you everything he tried to erase. Because I'm not just a mother. I'm not just a daughter. I'm a woman who believed a funeral was real. Until I found out I was grieving a lie. And I promise you. You haven't heard the worst of it. The front desk girl had a nose ring and long red nails. She chewed gum and smiled at me like I was just another random visitor. But I wasn't a visitor. I was a daughter, on a mission to prove the woman I buried was still alive. Hi, welcome to Cedar Grove. Do you have an appointment to visit a resident today? I swallowed. My hands were shaking, but I didn't want her to see. No, I said calmly. I was just driving through. I think my mother might be here. The girl tilted her head. What's her name? Elaine Thompson. She would have been brought in maybe 6 years ago. Her fingers tapped the keyboard. Her gum popped. And then she paused. Brows furrowed. Her eyes darted back and forth across the screen. Elaine Thompson. Yeah. We do have someone by that name. My knees nearly buckled. She's alive? I whispered. The girl blinked at me. Yeah. She's been with us a while. Do you want to see her? My vision blurred. 6 years. 6 years of crying over ashes that weren't hers. Why yes, I choked out. Please. Please, yes. They led me through 2 locked doors and down a long hallway that smelled like bleach and soup. Every step felt like I was walking into a dream I didn't want to wake up from. And then, there she was. On a bench by the window. Wrapped in a red cardigan. Hair white. Skin pale. And yet somehow, when she turned and looked at me, her eyes were still my mother's. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just dropped to my knees in front of her like I was 5 years old again and sobbed. Her hand twitched. Sarah, she whispered, voice raspy. Is it really you? I nodded. Yes, Mama. It's me. It's me. She began to cry, too. They told me you stopped coming. They said, you didn't want me anymore. I pulled her hands into mine. No, no. I was told you died. Jason told me, you were gone. We even held a funeral. Her mouth dropped open. And then she said the one sentence that would shatter the last pieces of my heart. But Jason was the one who brought me here. After I left the nursing home, I sat in my car for nearly an hour. Just breathing. Or trying to. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I stared out through the windshield, not even seeing the road, just flashes of Jason's smug face at her memorial. The fake tears. The dramatic speeches. The way he hugged me like a hero holding up the family. All of it a lie. My own brother, the man I trusted with the arrangements, the man I leaned on when I thought I was too broken to go on, had dumped our mother in a nursing home and buried someone else in her place. And for what? Money? Control? I didn't even drive home. I drove straight to Jason's office. He worked in real estate, big shot with glass doors, fake smiles, and enough coffee to power a small city. The receptionist barely looked up when I walked in. I didn't knock. I slammed the door open so hard it rattled. Jason looked up from behind his desk. He had the nerve to smirk. Wow. You look like hell. I stepped forward. You told me Mom was dead. He froze. Just for a second. Then he leaned back casually. What are you talking about? I went to Cedar Grove today, I said, voice trembling with rage. I saw her, Jason. I spoke to her. She's alive. And she remembers everything. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. You lied, I hissed. You made me bury someone else. You staged a fake funeral. You. I did what was best for her, he suddenly snapped, slamming his fist on the desk. She was getting worse. You weren't here. You were off in another city, playing nurse to strangers while our mother rotted away. Don't you dare, I shouted. Don't you dare turn this around on me. You hid her. You told me she was gone. She didn't even remember your name anymore, Sarah, he said coldly. What was I supposed to do? Let her wander into traffic? She needed a place that could handle her. So why lie? I screamed. Why not tell me where she was? Why fake a death certificate, Jason? He stood up, walked over to the window, and stared out at the skyline like the answer was out there somewhere. Because she left everything to you, he said quietly. In her will. The house. The savings. Everything. And you were always the favorite. My breath caught in my throat. You, I whispered. You stole from her, and from me? He turned around, arms crossed. No, he said. I took what I deserved. You were never here, Sarah. You moved on. I stayed behind and dealt with her when she didn't know who I was, when she screamed at 2 a.m., when she wet the floors. You abandoned her. I buried her long before the funeral. I stared at him in disgust. You're a monster. No, he said calmly. I'm practical. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because right then, I saw something behind his smug eyes. A flicker of fear. Of panic. He thought he had buried the past. But the past was breathing. And I was going to bring everything back to the surface. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even sit down. I went straight to the box in my closet, the one marked estate that I hadn't opened in 6 years. It still smelled like grief. Old envelopes, funeral home receipts, sympathy cards with fading ink. And the will. At the time, I'd been too broken to really examine it. Jason had handled most of the paperwork, which, looking back now, should have been the first red flag. But that night, I laid it all out on my kitchen table. Side by side. The original will. The death certificate. The care facility's paperwork Jason forgot to shred. And that's when I saw it. 2 signatures. One from the will. One from a greeting card I'd saved, the last card she ever wrote me before she died. Both said Elaine. But they didn't match. Not even close. My mother's signature always had a long, trailing E and a loop on the I. She made hearts over her lowercase letters, like a teenager. But the will? It was stiff. Formal. Forged. I felt like throwing up. Jason had forged her signature. He'd filed a fake will. Legally declared her dead. Claimed everything. And I had just accepted it. Because I trusted my brother. Because I never thought family could do this. But I wasn't going to be silent anymore. I made an appointment with the notary who'd signed the will. A man named Patrick Reynolds. His name was stamped across the bottom of the page like a seal of approval. When I walked into his office, he barely looked up. Until I put the will on his desk and asked, "Do you remember this woman?" He glanced down, squinted, and said, "Sure, Elaine Thompson. Signed this in, 2018. Why?" I slid over a photo of my mom from the same year, standing next to me, smiling, with a walker and a nurse by her side. She was living in a memory care facility 2 states away on that exact date, I said. She couldn't write, speak clearly, or travel. His face turned pale. I leaned forward. So I'll ask again, do you remember witnessing this signature? He swallowed. Listen, I notarize a lot of stuff. Sometimes people, Jason, bring in documents and say they were signed already. Sometimes I just. You just what? I snapped. He didn't answer. Do you know forging a will is a felony? I said quietly. Do you know you could lose your license, your job, your entire reputation over this? He looked like he might pass out. Jason said it was legal, he mumbled. He said she was dying. He said it was her wish. She's not dead, I said coldly. She's alive. I saw her yesterday. He stared at me in horror. And I smiled, because finally, I had the upper hand. I'm giving you 48 hours to do the right thing, I told him. Swear an affidavit. Submit a statement. Admit the will was forged. Or I go to the police, and the bar association. I stood and walked out. By the time I got home, there was an email in my inbox. Subject line, I'm ready to talk. The courtroom was packed. Not with strangers, with family. Aunts who'd once sent casseroles. Cousins who showed up for Christmas just to smile for pictures. And Jason, sitting there in his tailored suit, arms folded like he still had something to smirk about. He didn't. Because Mom was wheeled in next. The room shifted. You could feel the gasp ripple through the benches like a cold wind. People stared like they'd seen a ghost. Jason went pale. Then red. Then back to pale again. And I just stood there, steady, holding Mom's hand, the one he thought no one would ever hold again. She looked confused at first, scanning the faces. But when her eyes locked on Jason, her lips pressed together in a tight, shaky line. I know him, she whispered. And that was enough. The judge, an older woman with zero patience for nonsense, read over the documents carefully. Patrick Reynolds, the notary, had submitted a full written statement, admitting he never saw Mom sign anything. That Jason brought in the will already signed and told him to stamp it. Jason's lawyer tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I stepped onto the witness stand. My palms were sweating, but my voice was clear. My mother didn't die in 2018, I said. She was placed in a facility by my brother, without my knowledge, and declared dead on paper so he could take control of her assets. I held up the real will. She never changed it. This copy, the one with her true signature, was buried under paperwork he hoped I'd never find. Jason stood up suddenly. She doesn't even know what she's saying anymore, he shouted, pointing at Mom. She has dementia. You want to believe a woman who can't tell time? Mom's voice broke through the tension. I know who you are, she said shakily. You left me. You said I was dead. But I'm not. The judge held up a hand. Mr. Thompson, sit down. But Jason didn't. She was a burden, he exploded. I did everything. I paid the bills, I cleaned her house, You stole her life, I cut in. The judge banged the gavel once. That's enough. In the end, it was simple. The will was declared fraudulent. The assets returned. And Jason? He walked out of that courtroom stripped of everything, the money, the house, the name he'd worked so hard to polish. And for once, he had nothing left to say. The house was quiet again. Not cold like before, just quiet. Mom sat by the window, sipping tea from a mug that once belonged to Grandma. It was chipped, old, and a little stained. But it was real. So much had been fake. The will. The story. The funeral we were never supposed to question. But this moment, sitting with her in the afternoon sun, holding hands like we used to when I was little, this was real. And I wasn't going to let it slip away again. You okay, Mama? I asked. She blinked slowly, then looked up at me. You saved me, she said quietly. I don't know how, but you did. Tears welled in my eyes. You were never gone, I whispered. Just hidden. She smiled. You always had a fire in you. Your father used to say, that girl doesn't let lies sit too long. I laughed through the lump in my throat. Guess he was right. Later that week, I invited the rest of the family over. Not because I wanted their approval. I wanted the truth to echo in the walls where lies once lived. They came, hesitant, awkward. You could feel the shame in the room like smoke. Aunt Carol avoided my eyes. Uncle Ray cleared his throat too many times. My cousin Amber clutched her phone like she wished she was anywhere else. But I stood my ground. I want you all to see her, I said. To look at her. Really look. Mom waved gently from her chair. Fragile, but full of dignity. She's not dead, I continued. And she never was. You came to a funeral for a woman still breathing. No one said a word. And not one of you ever questioned it. It wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about accountability. Because silence? That's how people like Jason get away with it. It wasn't just his betrayal, it was everyone else's comfort with pretending. Looking away. Choosing peace over truth. You may not have signed that will, I said, but you let him carry it. You let him erase her. Uncle Ray tried to defend himself. We thought she was gone, we didn't know. You didn't ask, I shot back. That's the part that stings. In the end, only a few stayed behind. Aunt Carol, teary-eyed, knelt by Mom's feet and said, I'm so sorry. We failed you. Mom smiled softly and touched her cheek. You can still show up now. And she did. Every week after. Mom lived for 2 more years. 2 full, beautiful, truth-filled years. We planted flowers. We played old records. She forgot things sometimes, but never forgot me again. And when she passed, really passed, I wrote the obituary myself. No lies. No edits. Just the truth. She lived. She loved. She was stolen, and she came back. Never stop asking questions, especially when silence feels too easy. The truth may hurt, but lies bury the living. Speak up. Dig deep. Because love doesn't lie, and family doesn't fake funerals.